I think somebody's dog is barking. He's probably like, who is this girl who comes out here and just talks? This is stupid. So yesterday I came out here and I tried to make this video that I was really excited about making because, as has been happening lately, it feels like every video is a continuation on the next. And as I really focus on a subject and trick myself into explaining it to others so that they can get it for their purposes, start understanding it on a much deeper level myself, I wanted to explain this kind of realization, how the last video just settled in, and I'm finding it incredibly difficult. And I hate to admit this because I feel like I love language, and I try very hard to make language work for me. And I realize that there's no real inherent meaning in words, but we're making them up on the fly. And there's all kinds of Easter eggs or glitches in the matrix with words, and in how words sound the same, and in how words have double meanings. They don't really have double meanings. It's like language is an infinite entendre. Did I say that right? Like, instead of a double entendre, it's an infinite entendre. It means something very profoundly funny and intimate, and it can't be sexual because it's prior to separation. So, oh yeah, it's an innuendo. An innuendo. I get innuendo and entendre mixed up for some reason. Innuendos are like sexual or have sexual connotations. So I just deeply somehow realized that love feels like love. Like, it's all an excuse. It's all what we really mean when we talk about the story. What we really believe is going on, what we really believe is reality, is the story that's the problem. It's never the stories that we realize are stories. And Neil Gaiman, one of my favorite, most profound quotes from him, is that fiction is a lie that tells the truth. Because when you tell a story for the purpose of teaching, it's like an analogy or something like that. There's no self in it. There's no real beliefs. It separates the beliefs, and that's your healing potential within a story. And so I feel like there's a ton of potential to bring magic and creativity into these teachings, because already this is how these stories unfold. If you've been awake to synchronicity, it's like looking up name meanings, looking up double meanings of words, you know that there are these Easter eggs, these glitches in the matrix, these beautiful sort of reminders that we are creating and created by this, and that there's no separation. So the author is prior to separation. The author of the story is prior to the separation of the characters. And it's the characters' love for each other is borrowed from the author's love for the creation of the story. And there's nothing lost in that. It doesn't mean that there isn't real love between the characters, but it does mean that there's no reason to ever feel cut off from it. So that's what we do. We forget that love feels like love. And when we do that, we stop being the author and we start being the character. We start being cut off, and there's no power in the character. And this is what is meant by the law of attraction. When you align with when you give up the power that you think you have, the power you think you have in the story that you believe is reality, when you give that up, that power, the true power, the true identity, beyond identity, of the author is what you are. And you realize this current, this source, this potential of energy, and you ride that current. And current has a double meaning. It means both a current, like water flowing in a current, or a current of electricity. It also means right now. And we even have this story that comes out sometimes that it's disappointing, in that right now we can love. And even if we can't right now, that story can just be dropped as well. So if you're like me, when you start to catch on to these things, there's a really annoying misinterpretation that comes up that's like, okay, so it's super important that I focus on what I want and like love all the time and like don't think about what I don't want, which is the same, like brings me back to the same exact place as where I was in Christianity, where it was evil to think about certain things, and like I was trying to stop those thoughts, like don't think about the devil or whatever else, and it turns into what you might call repression. And it's sort of the same thing as telling your toddler not to spill their drink. If you're like super demanding about that and you kind of act like it'll be the end of the world if they spill their drink, you're going to end up cleaning up a spilled drink, because it's like kids are always testing our love, and we sort of try to test this love as well. And of course that only ends up with our own suffering, because there's no actual God to clean up the mess. Mother Earth's like, sorry, Mother Earth. Yeah, that kind of happens. So what happens is we're like, don't think about that. And this is kind of how all addiction and all neurosis comes about. And so sometimes it's like we want to act out our freedom in such a strong way. So I was thinking about this, and it had really hit me at the time, like how love feels like love, which sounds like the most stupid, obvious realization, but profound. And I was driving out to do some grocery shopping, and the song came. Well, I had the intuition to change the radio station, and this song was on, and it was like an 80s rock song, and it had something about stolen love, and I can't find the song, but that was like in the chorus, and I was like, stolen love. Like there's something so appealing about what you cannot have, what's off limits, and people are constantly testing that love. And I was like, what? It hit me what that's pointing to. And it's pointing to the love that is current, the current. right now we feel like within the story the character can't access that love. That is the true illicit drug, illicit affair, illicit joy. So, of course, I look up the etymology of the word illicit, and ill means not, and illicit is some sort of Latin word as far as I can understand. That means allowed, not allowed. And so the author, the current source, love, is the ultimate allowing, the allowing of you. Awareness right now is always allowing. And I had this other experience recently where I had wanted really bad to go to this cemetery in another city and find the grave of somebody that I had dug up some sort of connection with, and was somewhat of a notable, like, spiritualist, or I forget what title, like a mesmerist, as well as a lot of other things. So the first day I could not find his grave. I looked and looked and looked, and I wasn't in a great mood. And the next day I had just written off because I thought that the whole day was going to rain. And it ended up being a really nice morning, so we went back, and my husband came out and helped me look, and I just started enjoying the cemetery and enjoying the settings, the setting itself, and I found the grave. And then I noticed this enormous oak tree that I just had to go up to and look at and appreciate. Because honestly, one of my favorite things about cemeteries is the old enormous trees that they don't cut, that they just leave, and have so much space to grow and be healthy. And I found a geocache in it. And then I find this beautiful painted rock of Rapunzel in a tower. And then I find a couple other interesting things. And it was just finding. And later, when I was journaling about the experience, I realized, like, I'd been searching, noticing it wasn't there, feeling like it wasn't there, which is the feeling that it isn't there prior to the noticing that what I'm looking for isn't there. And that all there is finding. So we're the ones saying, I don't like what I'm finding, and so I'm still searching. But all there is finding. All there is allowing. So I sent the pictures from the trip to my friend, and right after I heard the song about stolen love and had made that connection, she sent me a text while I was in the grocery store, and she said that they'd gotten broken into and they lost a ton of stuff. It was a really awful thing to have happen. And she just amazes me. Like, I sort of teared up in the conversation because something else really challenging had just happened to her, and her attitude about it, just how, like, responsive and just finding humor in it, it just amazed me, and I just appreciated it so much. And it's like, that is what can never be stolen. So I sent her the pictures. I sent her a picture I had my husband take of me in front of the big oak tree. And in behind it was another tree that had this, like, broken limb and a rotted out spot. And it had mushrooms growing in it. So I sent a picture of that to her as well, because hiking we used to look at mushrooms and take pictures of mushrooms sometimes. And she told me that there was this really scary figure that she had to stop looking at in one of the pictures, but I'd sent a close up of it, so she figured I knew about it. So I looked at the picture, and like I knew it was a dark spot in the tree, but when I looked at it, I could see like a Grim Reaper figure. And so I thought that was hilarious. So I listened to the song. It inspired me to listen to the song Don't Fear the Reaper, which has amazing lyrics and is a huge part of popular culture for good reason. And then I went to my parents and looked through this farming magazine and found, located in a town that had a ton of synchronicity to me, someone selling scythes. And then I made the connection of how in the Bible they talk about the harvest. And that's truly what it is. Like the fruits of your labor, no doership, can really be harvested at any time. That is allowing the harvest, and yet we sort of see this. We sort of paint this as death because it's letting go of that story, letting go of that character we feel is unloved, letting go of the whole flawed, what I'm finding is not okay with me, that whole premise. And we sometimes come up with such strange, like, again, like the Grim Reaper. There's so many like symbols that the Reaper's a harvester. So you have good things and give thanks. And the devil is modeled after a goat. He is like the ultimate scapegoat. It's funny what things you start to notice. When you realize that you're the author of it all. You're coming up with the meaning right now.